Crystar deals with some pretty heavy themes and isn't afraid to tackle the delicate subject of mental health. It's a game that I've spotted in various places since it first released on the PlayStation 4 in 2019. I've seen it on shelves, online, and in the sales on PSN, but I've always passed it up. It's one of those games that I've always wanted to play but just never pulled the trigger on. Recently though, I heard that the game was getting a Nintendo Switch port, so of course I reached out to NIS America, who kindly offered me a review code for that version of the game. It's definitely not a perfect game, but after playing it, I feel like I really missed out and I absolutely should have picked it up sooner. So first of all, what is Crystar? Well, it's a dungeon crawling action RPG with some light visual novel elements and a strong emphasis on emotional turmoil. You play as a young girl named Rei Hatada, who enters into a contract with two demons of purgatory named Mephis and Felice. She does this in an attempt to revive her deceased younger sister, Mirai Hatada, before her soul enters the cogs of renewal and becomes a completely new person. The main theme or concept of the game revolves around crying. As you can probably guess, the title of the game is a combination of the words cry and star. Based on a few things that I've read here and there, the game's producer wanted to convey a sense that something beautiful, shining, and pure like a teardrop can come from some of the darkest of places and events. Crying is actually one of the main mechanics of the game. During an ordeal, which is the term used for missions in this game, you can obtain the final thoughts of the dead known as torments by killing specific enemies. You can collect up to 10 of these torments at once, and then by selecting the purify option in the menus, Rei will begin to cry and her tears will turn the torments into equipable items known as sentiments. These sentiments can be fused to make stronger versions of themselves and of course grant various bonuses to your stats when equipped. You'll be able to manage and sort all of this stuff while outside of the dungeon crawling in Rei's room. This is essentially the hub or home base, and all of your setup and preparations can be done here. During the actual dungeon crawling and combat, you'll be able to execute a single button combo of light attacks, a heavy attack, and you can perform a special move by holding down one of the shoulder buttons and pressing the assigned face button. Other than that, you can jump or do a quick dodge to get out of harm's way. At a certain point in the story, you'll unlock a teardrop gauge located at the bottom left of the screen. This will fill as you hit your enemies and as you get hit yourself. You can also stand in place and hold down a button to have Rei cry on the spot. Crying like this will fill the gauge but also deplete your SP. You're also completely vulnerable while doing this. Luckily, your SP will regenerate a small amount each time you land a hit on an enemy as well. Once that teardrop is full, you can summon your guardian Heraclitus to assist you in battle, and you can press the summon button again to unleash a powerful finishing move which will deplete the gauge entirely. Even when Heraclitus isn't summoned, he can help you out with counterattacks on the enemies that hit you, and he can even shield you from dying in certain situations. If you're a bit confused about what a Guardian is, it's a very similar concept to how Guardian Ghosts work in Shaman King. Later on in the game, you'll also unlock the ability to bring 3 other characters into an ordeal with Rei and switch between all 4 characters on the fly using the D-pad. I won't show this on screen though due to spoilers. The dungeons themselves follow the traditional style of relatively basic layouts with various flaws. As you explore, you'll defeat enemies, level up, discover useful items, and collect essence. There's even a shop at the start of each dungeon where you can spend the essence and purchase supplies. The game also features a full English dub, or you can stick with the more traditional Japanese voices with English subtitles. The choice is yours. So what do I personally think of Crystar? Well, despite the themes being pretty depressing and going into things like suicide, neglect, stress, and so much more, I really do like the game. The story is, unsurprisingly, very dark, and it really makes me think and reflect upon life and death. Some of these kind of subjects can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, I do understand that. Things like your own mortality, for example, can be very difficult to discuss. Still though, it does make the game very interesting, engaging, thoughtful, and truthfully, kinda moving at times. Now, I'm not exactly old, I'm just about to hit my mid-30s, but man, back in my early 20s when I had my accident, and then I actually hit 30, and then we got a little puppy and all that stuff, I've just become so much more sentimental over the years. Things just kind of mean more to me now, and games like this really do hit me harder than they ever have before. I think the English voice actors do a very good job of conveying the loss and the sadness in the game, and for me it's all around a great dub. That is just my personal opinion though, and I do have a bias towards English dubs, so your mileage may vary. The character artwork and the anime opening song are really great as well. I generally quite like the clean and sharp anime artwork that you'd see in the portraits of Persona 5 for example, but this game has an almost sketched or pencil drawn look to it, and for me it's just brilliant. The opening movie has some awesome animation and a very dark but catchy song, and I'll leave the link to that in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. One thing that's kind of weird though, apparently the opening video was censored on the PS4, and for whatever reason it looks like that censored version has found its way onto the Switch. Now to be fair, it's literally a quick glimpse of a butt during the magical girl transformation. However, I don't really believe that censorship is acceptable regardless of how small the censorship actually is. I'm not going to go over the whole argument right now, but it just doesn't make logical sense to me to censor anything. I mean, why pander to the people that were never going to buy your game in the first place? I don't know, it's just ridiculous, but moving on. In terms of the actual gameplay, I don't think it's all that good, to be upfront with you. Thing is though, I do still love it. It's a bit janky at times, and considering this is a Switch port, it runs at 30 FPS and below, so you definitely do feel it from time to time. For me, this is kind of like the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter movie. I know it's bad, I really do, but I still love it and I just can't help myself. Crystar has great artwork, brilliant music, a compelling story, great voice acting, and decent subsystems, but when it comes to the actual combat and the 3D assets, they just aren't really up to the task. That said, it really doesn't matter to me. I still like it, but I could absolutely see the moment-to-moment gameplay and combat being a sticking point for some players. Don't get me wrong, it's not unplayable, not at all, it's perfectly fine. It's just a little bit simple, a bit imprecise, and a little bit janky at times. Its animations are generally a bit stiff as well, but even though the 3D models and environments aren't that great, you can really see the artistic vision showing through. I think the art direction transcends what they were able to do with the 3D assets, and really, I just wish I could have seen what Crystar could have looked like with a much bigger budget. It's also worth noting that the Switch release of the game is getting a physical copy on the 1st of April 2022, at least here in the UK. I actually spotted a listing on Amazon UK for it, so it's probably a good idea to check out the usual places you go to for your games in your country to see if you can grab one for your collection. Do keep in mind though, the Switch physical version will be more expensive than the PS4 physical version. In my opinion, Crystar is a dark, somber, and thought-provoking action RPG with a great story to tell. Sure, the 3D models, environments, and parts of the gameplay aren't exactly stellar, but as far as I'm concerned, it's nowhere near as bad as it may seem. I personally like the game quite a lot, but to play devil's advocate, I could absolutely understand it if someone loved the story, but dropped the game due to the combat. The Nintendo Switch was never going to be the best place to play the game, but there is something to be said for owning it on a handheld console, and the graphics will probably hold up far better on the Switch's 720p screen. Ultimately, I think an individual player's enjoyment of this game will hinge on one simple thing. Can you get over the somewhat disappointing combat? If not, then perhaps it's worth skipping this one. However, if like me, you've played a lot of lower-end Japanese RPGs, and you don't mind some of these sub-optimal controls and gameplay, then I wholeheartedly recommend this game to you. If you enjoyed the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing, and if you like what I do and want to help support the channel, please check out the first link in the video description down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.